The ship named Horizon glided through the stars toward the newly found planet. Captain Lisa Ward stood at the front window of the bridge, her eyes fixed on the blue and green world growing larger before them. Cerberus 9, she said quietly, home to the most dangerous creatures in this part of space. The planet had only been discovered 3 months ago. The first probe sent to its surface had lasted just 6 hours before something big and angry had torn it apart. The second probe caught images of the attackers, massive 6-legged beasts with thick armor plates and long tusks. The Galactic Coalition scientists named them Ravagers. Lisa turned to her crew. Final checks, everyone. We land in 30 minutes. Science Officer Kevin Barnes looked up from his screen. Captain, I've reviewed the data again. These Ravagers are larger than we thought. Some reach 20 feet in length. Noted, Lisa said with a nod. Security Chief Greg Miller checked his weapons. My team is ready. Non-lethal defenses only, as ordered. Good. Lisa had been clear about that. They were explorers, not hunters. The shuttle shook as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Engineer Samantha Ross called out readings as they descended through thick clouds. The plan was simple. Establish a small base camp, study the wildlife from a safe distance, and determine if the planet could someday be settled. Other alien species in the Coalition had already written off Cerberus 9 as too dangerous. The tall, blue-skinned Silurians had called it a death world, fit only for monsters. But humans had a history of taming dangerous places. Lisa believed they could understand these creatures rather than just fear them. The shuttle broke through the cloud layer, revealing a landscape of rolling plains and distant mountains. Tall grass swayed in the wind. It looked peaceful, almost like Earth's African savanna. I'm picking up movement, Kevin said, pointing to a herd of smaller animals grazing in the distance. Herbivores, I think. No sign of Ravagers yet. Lisa felt a surge of excitement. This was why she had joined the space program. To see new worlds, to be first. The shuttle's engines shifted to landing mode. Then a warning siren blared. Storm system, Samantha shouted. Coming in fast. Lisa looked out to see dark clouds rushing toward them. The peaceful sky was suddenly gone, replaced by swirling winds. Abort landing, Lisa ordered. Get us back up. Samantha fought with the controls. Engines are struggling against the wind shear. The shuttle rocked violently. Equipment broke loose, sliding across the floor. A loud crack echoed through the cabin as something hit one of the engines. We're losing power, Samantha called. I need to put us down now. Lisa gripped her seat. Do it. The shuttle dropped faster than planned. It hit the ground hard, skidding through tall grass. Everyone held on as the vessel finally came to a stop, tilted to one side. Greg was the first to recover. Status report. Minor injuries only, Kevin said, helping another crew member up. But the shuttle. Lisa moved to the shattered front window. The storm was already passing, but one glance at the smoking engine told her they wouldn't be flying out soon. We're stranded, Samantha confirmed after checking the systems. Communications are down too. The Horizon won't know what happened. Lisa stepped outside, feeling the alien soil under her boots. The air was breathable, just as the probes had indicated. In the distance, she saw the herd of animals running away, not from the humans, but from something else. Movement in the grass, Greg warned, pointing his scanner toward the west. Large life forms. 3 of them, moving fast. The grass parted as 3 massive creatures emerged. They stood on 6 powerful legs, armored plates covering their bodies. Long tusks curved up from their jaws. Their eyes locked onto the humans. Ravagers. Greg raised his stun rifle, but Lisa put her hand on it, pushing it down. We're visitors here, she said calmly. Let's observe before we act. As the Ravagers moved closer, other Coalition species would have immediately opened fire. But Lisa watched carefully, noting how the creatures moved, how they communicated with soft growls. There was intelligence in those eyes. Only humans, Kevin whispered beside her. would be crazy enough to stand their ground against these beasts. Lisa smiled slightly. And that's exactly why we might be the ones to understand them. 3 days passed since the crash. The humans worked quickly to build a temporary camp around their damaged shuttle. They used parts of the broken wing to make a fence. It wasn't strong enough to stop a Ravager, but it marked their territory. Kevin Barnes sat on a rock at the edge of camp. He watched the Ravagers through special glasses that could see far away. He wrote notes on a small computer as the creatures moved across the plains. They hunt in groups of 3, he said to himself. Always 3. Lisa walked up behind him. Learning anything useful? Kevin nodded without looking away from the Ravagers. They're smart. See how the 2 smaller ones drive the prey toward the larger one. That's not just instinct. That's planning. In the distance, the Ravagers chased a herd of deer-like animals. Just as Kevin described, 2 Ravagers forced the herd to turn toward where the third waited. They also have some kind of rank in their groups, Kevin continued. The big one with the scared plate on its back. The others always let it eat first. Lisa watched with interest. Other species in the galaxy would have seen only monsters. Kevin saw patterns and intelligence. On the other side of camp, Greg worked with Samantha to set up sonic posts around the perimeter. The devices made sounds that Ravagers didn't like. It wouldn't hurt them, but it would keep them from coming too close to the camp. Post 5 is active, Greg said into his communicator. That completes the circle. As he finished speaking, a ship appeared in the sky. It wasn't the Horizon. It was smaller and sleeker, with the blue and silver colors of the Xelarian people. Looks like we have visitors, Samantha said, shading her eyes from the sun. The Xelarian ship landed outside their camp. A tall blue-skinned figure stepped out, dressed in formal robes. Ambassador Zorn had arrived, and he didn't look happy. Captain Ward, the Xelarian called as he approached the fence. Your ship reported you missing. I was nearby and offered to check this location. Lisa walked over to greet him. Thank you for coming, Ambassador. As you can see, we had a rough landing. Zorn's eyes moved constantly, scanning for danger. You must leave immediately. I've brought a shuttle large enough for your crew. We're not ready to leave, Lisa replied. We've only just started our research. The ambassador's blue skin seemed to pale. Research. These are Ravagers. They've killed everyone who has ever studied them. No one has ever really tried to understand them, Kevin said, joining the conversation. They've only tried to kill them or run away. As they spoke, a group of 3 Ravagers appeared at the edge of the tall grass. Ambassador Zorn froze in fear. Don't move, Greg warned, his hand moving to his weapon. But Lisa stepped forward, raising her hand slowly. They're just curious. They've been watching us for days. If they wanted to attack, they would have done it already. The largest Ravager, the one with the scared back, sniffed the air. It made a low growling sound to the others. Then, surprisingly, the 3 turned and walked away. Zorn's mouth fell open. They'd left. They're respecting our space, Kevin explained, just like we respect theirs. That night, the humans and Zorn sat around a small fire. The ambassador still wanted them to leave, but he had agreed to stay one night to see their work. Your people are strange, Zorn said to Lisa. Any other species would have been on my shuttle immediately. Lisa smiled. Humans have always had a different approach to dangerous animals. On Earth, our home planet, we've tamed creatures that once hunted us. But why take the risk? Zorn asked. Greg laughed. It's what we do. When everyone else runs away, humans want to understand. From beyond the fence came the sounds of Ravagers calling to each other in the night. The calls were almost musical, rising and falling in patterns. Listen, Kevin said quietly. They're communicating. Much more complex than we thought. Zorn shook his head in wonder. Only humans would be crazy enough to sit and listen to monster calls as if it were music. Yes, Lisa agreed. And tomorrow, We're going to try to answer them. Morning came to Cerberus 9 with 2 suns rising over the distant mountains. Samantha worked at a table outside the shuttle, surrounded by tools and parts. She had been up most of the night. "Is it ready?" Lisa asked, offering Samantha a cup of hot drink. Samantha nodded and held up a small round device. "I think so. It makes sounds similar to the calls we heard last night, but at a lower pitch." Ambassador Zorn watched from a few steps away. He had not slept well. "You're actually going to try to talk to them? This is madness." Kevin joined them, excited. "The Ravagers are back. Same group as yesterday." Lisa took the sound device from Samantha. "Let's see if they want to chat." The group walked to the edge of their camp. 3 Ravagers stood about 50 yards away. The largest one, with the scared backplate, watched them closely. "I still think this is a bad idea," Greg said, but he kept his weapon lowered as Lisa had ordered. Lisa held up the device and pressed a button. A low, rumbling call came from it, similar to the sounds they had heard the Ravagers make. The 3 creatures tilted their heads at the same time, listening. After a moment, the largest Ravager made a similar sound back. "It worked," Kevin whispered. "They'd recognize it as communication." Lisa tried again, changing the pattern slightly. Again, the Ravagers responded. Even Zorn seemed impressed. No species has ever established any form of communication with them. "Because no one ever tried," Lisa said. "They just saw monsters." The exchange continued for several minutes. Then something unexpected happened. From the tall grass behind the 3 adult Ravagers, a smaller one appeared. It was clearly young, perhaps half the size of the adults. "A juvenile," Kevin said, quickly taking notes. "First one we've seen." The young Ravager seemed curious. It moved closer to the humans than the adults had dared. One of the adults made a sharp sound, but the young one kept coming. "It's like a child ignoring its parents' warning," Samantha said with a smile. Suddenly, a different group of Ravagers burst from the grass far to the right. They charged toward the first group with angry calls. The adults moved to protect the young one, but in the chaos, the juvenile was separated. The humans watched as a violent fight broke out between the 2 Ravager groups. Tusks slashed, armor plates crashed together. "Territorial dispute," Kevin guessed. "The young one is in danger." Before anyone could stop her, Lisa ran toward the young Ravager, device still in hand. It was cut off from its group by the fighting adults. "Lisa, stop," Greg shouted, running after her. The young Ravager was injured, bleeding from a cut on its leg. It made a frightened sound as Lisa approached. She activated the sound device, making the soft calling sound they had exchanged earlier. The juvenile stopped trying to run. It looked at Lisa with large eyes that showed intelligence and fear. "It's okay," Lisa said softly, though she knew the creature couldn't understand her words. "We can help you." Ambassador Zorn watched in horror as Lisa slowly reached out toward the injured Ravager. "She's going to get herself killed." But to everyone's surprise, the young Ravager didn't attack. It sniffed Lisa's hand cautiously. Greg arrived at Lisa's side, stun weapon ready. "What's the plan here, Captain?" "We're taking it back to camp to treat its wound," Lisa said, never taking her eyes off the young creature. "It's hurt and separated from its group." "This is against every protocol in the Coalition," Zorn called out. "No one treats wild Ravagers." The adults were still fighting, paying no attention to the humans. Lisa slowly moved closer to the juvenile. "Humans do," she replied to Zorn. "On Earth, we've saved injured wolves, bears, and sharks, all animals that could kill us. It's what we do." Kevin approached carefully with a medical kit. The young Ravager watched him, but didn't run. "We'll call you Scout," Lisa said to the creature, "because you're brave enough to meet us halfway." As Lisa treated the wound with Kevin's help, something remarkable happened. The young Ravager made a soft purring sound and leaned slightly against her. "First contact," Lisa whispered. "Real contact." Even from a distance, Zorn could see this was a historic moment. Humans had done the impossible. They had earned the trust of a Ravager. 2 weeks passed since the humans had rescued Scout. The young Ravager's wound had healed well under Kevin's care. At first, Scout stayed in a pen they built inside their camp. Now, he wandered freely among them during the day, returning to the wild each night to be with his pack. Ambassador Zorn had left, but not before sending a full report to the Galactic Coalition about the humans and their strange bond with the Ravager. Lisa sat at the camp table reviewing data when Samantha ran up to her. "Captain, we're getting a transmission. It's from orbit." They hurried to the communication station they had fixed inside the shuttle. A stern face appeared on the screen. It was Admiral John Perry, Lisa's commander. "Captain Ward," he said, "I received a most unusual report from Ambassador Zorn. He claims you're attempting to domesticate Ravagers." Lisa stood straight. "Not domesticate, sir. Understand. There's a difference." The Admiral frowned. "The Coalition Council is in an uproar. The Solarians are demanding we remove you from the planet immediately. The Draconians want the planet declared off-limits, and the Venlil are offering to send rescue ships." "We don't need rescue," Lisa replied. "We're making incredible progress. Scout has become a bridge between us and the wild Ravagers. The adult packs are getting more comfortable with our presence." Perry looked skeptical. "Scout? You named one." "Yes, sir. He visits our camp daily. Kevin has documented over 50 distinct vocalizations that seem to have specific meanings." The Admiral was quiet for a moment. "I'm coming to see this for myself. My ship will arrive in 3 days. Don't get eaten before then." The screen went dark. Kevin entered the shuttle. "Was that command? Are they happy with our work?" Lisa sighed. "Not exactly. Admiral Perry is coming to evaluate our situation. The Coalition races are upset about our approach with the Ravagers." Outside, Scout made his distinct calling sound from the edge of camp. He had returned from his pack earlier than usual. "Something's wrong," Greg said, watching Scout pace back and forth. "He's agitated." The humans followed as Scout led them to a small ridge overlooking a valley. In the distance, they could see a group of at least 15 Ravagers. Many were lying down. Others moved slowly, as if weak. Kevin used his viewing glasses. They looked sick. Several are showing signs of distress. Labored breathing, unusual posture. Lisa turned to Samantha. "Can we get closer safely?" Before Samantha could answer, Scout made a low rumbling sound. 3 adult Ravagers looked up from the valley and then slowly approached the ridge. They stopped a short distance away, watching the humans. "That's Scout's family group," Kevin said quietly. "The one with the scared plate is his parent." Lisa stepped forward slowly. The largest Ravager watched her but didn't show aggression. It seemed to be studying her. "They're coming to us for help," Lisa realized. "Scout told them we helped him, and now they want help for their sick pack members." Later that day, Kevin analyzed samples from the sick Ravagers, while Lisa prepared her report for Admiral Perry. "I found something interesting," Kevin said, looking up from his equipment. "There are traces of a synthetic compound in their blood. It's not natural to this planet." "Where would it come from?" Greg asked. Samantha pulled up a map on her computer. "There's mining operation on the moon of Cerberus 9. The Coalition approved it last year. Perhaps something from there is contaminating the water or plants." Lisa nodded. "That would explain why the Ravagers are getting sick now, even though they've survived on this planet for thousands of years." Greg looked worried. "The mining company won't like us interfering with their operation." "I care more about the Ravagers than corporate profits," Lisa said firmly. "When Admiral Perry arrives, we'll show him the evidence. The Ravagers aren't just fascinating creatures. They're part of this planet's ecosystem, and they're intelligent enough to ask for help." Scout made a soft sound and moved closer to Lisa, as if understanding her words. The adult Ravagers waited at a distance, watching. They had placed their trust in the humans when no other species would have even tried to communicate with them. Only humans, Samantha said with a smile, would be crazy enough to become doctors for Ravagers. Lisa patted Scout's armored head gently. And only humans would see that as a privilege, not a burden. Admiral Perry's shuttle landed at the edge of the human camp. A tall man with gray hair stepped out and looked around with cautious eyes. His uniform was crisp and decorated with medals. 4 security officers followed him, hands near their weapons. "Welcome to Cerberus 9, Admiral," Lisa said, walking forward to greet him. The Admiral nodded stiffly. "Captain Ward, I see you're still in one piece. Where are these Ravagers I've heard so much about?" As if on cue, Scout appeared from the tall grass and trotted into camp. The security officers raised their weapons, but Lissa quickly held up her hand. "Hold your fire. This is Scout, the juvenile we've been working with." Admiral Perry's eyes widened as Scout walked right up to Lisa and nudged her hand with his head. The young Ravager was now the size of a small horse, his armor plates shining in the sunlight. "Remarkable," Perry whispered. "He's not afraid of you at all." Kevin stepped forward with a datapad. "Scout has been with us for 2 weeks now. He returns to his pack at night, but spends most days here. We've documented over 60 distinct vocalizations, and he responds to 12 different vocal commands." Scout turned his attention to the Admiral, sniffing curiously. Perry stood very still. "He's just getting to know you," Lisa explained. "You can touch him if you'd like." Perry hesitated, then slowly reached out his hand. Scout allowed the Admiral to touch his armored head. "I've seen many strange things in my years of space exploration," Perry said, "but I never expected to pet a Ravager." Samantha approached, carrying several harnesses she had made. "We've developed these to help communicate with the Ravagers. They respond to gentle pressure signals." She demonstrated by placing one on Scout, who stood patiently. When she applied slight pressure to the left side, Scout turned left. When she pressed on the right, he turned right. "You're riding them?" Perry asked in disbelief. Greg nodded. "Just Scout so far. The adults are still getting used to us, but they're curious. 3 of them let us put harnesses on them yesterday." Perry shook his head. "The Xelarians were right. You humans are crazy." "Crazy works sometimes," Lissa replied with a smile. Later that day, they took the Admiral to see the sick Ravagers. Kevin had developed a treatment that was helping, and several of the creatures were already showing signs of improvement. "The mining operation on the moon is releasing chemicals that are poisoning the water here," Kevin explained. "We've sent samples to the Coalition Science Division for confirmation." "The mining company won't stop operations without solid proof," Perry warned. "Then we'll get solid proof," Lisa said firmly. As they spoke, more Ravagers appeared at the edge of the valley. Unlike before, they didn't run or attack. They watched the humans with what seemed like curiosity. "Their behavior is changing," Kevin noted. "They're beginning to see us as helpers, not threats." A large female Ravager slowly approached Scout and the humans. She had distinctive white markings on her armor. Scout made a friendly sound, and the female sniffed at the harness he wore. "She's interested in the harness," Samantha whispered. "This is huge progress." To everyone's surprise, the female Ravager lowered her head, allowing Samantha to approach with a harness. With slow, gentle movements, Samantha placed it on the creature. "I can't believe what I'm seeing," Perry said quietly. "We call her Star because of the white pattern on her back," Lisa explained. "She's been watching us treat the sick ones. She understands we're helping." The Admiral nodded slowly. "The Coalition won't believe this. Other species have tried to study Ravagers for decades. All failed. They tried to study them as specimens," Lisa said. "We're treating them as partners." Kevin showed the Admiral his latest discovery. Ravager saliva contains compounds that could revolutionize medicine throughout the galaxy. Their body chemistry is unlike anything we've seen before. Perry looked thoughtful. "So they're not just dangerous beasts. They could be valuable allies." That evening, as the sun set, Scout and Star remained in camp instead of returning to their pack. Star allowed Greg to treat a small wound on her leg. Scout lay near Lisa as she worked on reports. Admiral Perry watched this scene with amazement. When I arrived, I was prepared to order evacuation. Now I'm not so sure. Give us more time, Lisa urged. What we're learning here could change how the Coalition views not just Ravagers, but all supposedly dangerous species. As darkness fell, Scout made a soft singing call. Star answered with her own call. Then, from the distance, other Ravagers joined in. The night filled with their haunting chorus. It's beautiful, Perry admitted. Lisa nodded. Yes, and we're just beginning to understand it. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon. Lisa stood outside the camp, watching the sky turn an angry purple color. The air felt heavy and electric. That storm looks bad, Greg said, joining her. The weather scanner says it's 3 times bigger than the one that crashed our shuttle. Lisa nodded. How are the preparations coming? We've secured everything we can, but our camp wasn't built for this kind of weather. Inside the main tent, Admiral Perry was on a call with the mining company on the moon. His face was red with anger. Your chemicals are poisoning the planet below you, he said firmly. I've seen the evidence myself. The company director on the screen looked unmoved. We have all proper permits from the Coalition. Our operation is too valuable to stop because of some local wildlife. Perry leaned forward. These local wildlife are highly intelligent beings, and they're sick because of your mining waste. File a formal complaint, the director said dismissively. We'll review it in due time. The screen went dark. Perry turned to Lisa. Bureaucrats and businessmen. They won't stop until they're forced to. Kevin rushed into the tent. Captain, the storm is moving faster than predicted. It will hit us in 2 hours, not 5. Can the shuttles get us out in time? Lisa asked. Samantha shook her head. Not all of us, and definitely not the sick Ravagers. The winds are already too strong for safe takeoff. Lisa thought quickly. When we first arrived, we saw cave systems in the eastern hills. They could provide shelter. That's 10 miles away, Greg pointed out. We'd never make it on foot before the storm hits. Scout and Star entered the tent. They had grown comfortable inside the human structures. 4 other adult Ravagers now visited the camp regularly too. Lisa looked at the creatures thoughtfully. We might not have to go on foot. An hour later, the camp was in full evacuation mode. Essential supplies were packed into bundles. The sick Ravagers had been moved closer to the camp with help from Scout's pack. This is your plan? Perry asked, looking skeptical. Riding Ravagers to the caves. Lisa adjusted the harness on Star. It's our only option. The healthy Ravagers can carry us and our supplies. We'll guide the sick ones alongside. Most of these creatures have only known us for days, Perry argued. This storm will frighten them. They could turn on us. They trust us, Lisa said simply. Scout has shown them we can be trusted. As they debated, a small ship entered the atmosphere. It was a Solarian vessel. Ambassador Zorn had returned. The ship landed quickly, and Zorn stepped out, looking at the storm with fear. Captain Ward, Admiral Perry, he called over the rising wind. You must evacuate immediately. This storm will destroy everything in its path. We're working on it, Lisa replied, but we won't leave the Ravagers behind. Zorn stared at the 6 harnessed Ravagers standing calmly amid the humans. You can't possibly mean to. We're riding them to the caves, Lisa confirmed. My ship can take some of our people, and yours can take others. But many of us need to stay with the Ravagers. The ambassador looked horrified. This is insanity. These are wild beasts. Scout walked up to Zorn and made a soft greeting sound. The Solarian froze in place. They're not just beasts, Kevin said. They're intelligent. They understand more than we thought possible. Zorn shook his head in disbelief. The Council will never approve this. We don't have time for Council approval, Perry said, surprising Lisa with his support. Captain Ward's plan is our best option. The first heavy raindrops began to fall. Lightning flashed in the distance. I need volunteers to ride with the Ravagers, Lisa announced to the gathered crew. Every human stepped forward without hesitation. I'll stay too, Perry said. I want to see this with my own eyes. Lisa nodded gratefully, then turned to Zorn. Ambassador, you can take your ship and go. We don't expect you to take this risk. Zorn looked at the humans preparing to trust their lives to creatures his people had always feared. He looked at Scout, who watched him with intelligent eyes. My people would never understand, Zorn said quietly, but I will stay and observe. The Council should have a complete report of this unprecedented event. The wind howled louder as the humans mounted the Ravagers. Lisa sat astride Star, feeling the powerful creature shift beneath her. Stay close, she called to the others. The Ravagers know this land better than we do. Trust them to find the safest path. As the storm descended upon them, the strange caravan moved out. Humans riding creatures that all other species feared, heading toward shelter while the most powerful storm in years chased them across the plains of Cerberus 9. The storm chased them across the plains of Cerberus 9. Wind and rain lashed at the strange caravan of humans and Ravagers. Lisa rode at the front on Star, with Scout running beside them. Admiral Perry and Ambassador Zorn rode on two other Ravagers, clutching the harnesses tightly. This way, Lisa shouted over the howling wind, pointing toward a ridge in the distance. The caves lay just beyond it. Kevin rode close to Lisa, his face wet with rain. The sick Ravagers are struggling to keep up. Lisa looked back at the group of ill creatures walking slowly behind them. They had no riders, but Greg and two other crew members stayed with them, urging them forward. We need to slow down, Lisa called to the others. We stay together. Star seemed to understand. The large female Ravager made a low, rumbling call that echoed across the plains. The other Ravagers adjusted their pace. Lightning struck nearby, shaking the ground. Several of the Ravagers startled but didn't panic. They trusted their human partners. Amazing, Zorn said, his blue skin pale with fear and wonder. On my world, we have a saying. To ride the storm is to challenge death. I never thought it would be literal. Perry laughed despite the danger. Humans have always ridden into storms, Ambassador. It's in our nature. Back on the Horizon ship orbiting the planet, the bridge crew watched the storm through their sensors. They also watched a live video feed from small cameras attached to the riders' jackets. The feed was being transmitted to the Galactic Coalition headquarters. Representatives from 15 different alien species watched in stunned silence as humans rode creatures that had killed hundreds of their explorers over the years. Are they actually controlling those beasts? Asked a Draconian council member, his scaled face showing disbelief. Not controlling, replied a human diplomat. Working with them. There's a difference. On the planet, the caravan approached the ridge. Behind them, the full fury of the storm was gaining ground. The rain fell so hard it was difficult to see. We're almost there, Lisa shouted encouragingly to her team. Suddenly, the ground ahead shook violently. A flash of lightning revealed that part of the ridge had collapsed, blocking the path to the caves with huge boulders and mud. We're trapped, Zorn cried in despair. The storm is coming, and our path is blocked. Lisa dismounted from Star and ran to inspect the landslide. Greg joined her, his face grim. It would take machinery to clear this, he said. We don't have time. Scout sniffed at the debris, then made a series of clicking sounds. Star and the other Ravagers responded, gathering near the landslide. Kevin watched them with interest. They're communicating about the problem. To everyone's amazement, Scout began digging at the edge of the landslide. Star joined him, using her powerful front legs to move smaller rocks. The other Ravagers followed their example. They're clearing a path, Lisa said in wonder. The humans quickly joined the effort, working alongside the Ravagers to move debris. Even Zorn helped, his long Silurian fingers able to pull smaller rocks from tight spaces. Together, Perry called out, pushing a boulder with two Ravagers. Pushed together. The storm was almost upon them now. The wind screamed around them, and lightning struck the plains behind them. But humans and Ravagers worked as one, clearing enough of the path to create a narrow opening. Through here, Lisa directed. She helped the sick Ravagers go first, guiding them through the gap. Scout led the way, making encouraging sounds to his fellow creatures. The caravan squeezed through the opening, just as the full force of the storm hit the ridge. Inside the narrow pass, they could see the cave entrance ahead, dark but promising safety. "We made it," Samantha said, breathing hard from exertion. "No," Lisa corrected her with a smile. "We made it together." In the coalition headquarters, the watching representatives were silent. They had just seen humans and Ravagers working together to overcome a challenge neither could have managed alone. "Only humans," whispered a Venlil representative, her fur trembling with emotion, "would be crazy enough to see partners where we saw only monsters." Ambassador Zorn looked at Scout, who was now helping a sick juvenile Ravager into the cave. "I was wrong," he admitted to Lisa. "My people have been wrong for generations. These creatures are not mindless beasts." "No species is beyond understanding," Lisa replied. "Sometimes you just need to be crazy enough to try." As they entered the safety of the caves, humans and Ravagers alike exhausted but alive, Scout made a sound that Kevin had never heard before. It was repeated by the other Ravagers, a new vocalization. "What do you think it means?" Perry asked. Kevin smiled. "If I had to guess, I'd say it means family." 6 months had passed since the Great Storm. Where there had once been just a small camp, now stood the Cerberus 9 Research Center. The building was large and modern, with special areas built to accommodate both humans and Ravagers. Lisa walked through the main hall, stopping to watch a training session. Greg was teaching 3 young crew members how to work with juvenile Ravagers. The small creatures, each about the size of a large dog, followed simple commands and seemed to enjoy the training. "Captain Ward," called a voice behind her. Admiral Perry approached with a smile. He had become a strong supporter of the Ravager project. "Admiral, welcome back to Cerberus," Lisa greeted him. "The Coalition Council sends their regards," Perry said, "and their congratulations on the success of your program." They walked together to a large window overlooking an open field. 20 adult Ravagers moved in formation, each with a human rider. They were practicing rescue patterns, working together as a team. "The Ravager Ranger Division is coming along well," Lisa said with pride. "Scout is our best training assistant." The other Ravagers follow his lead. As if hearing his name, Scout appeared at the door to the field. He was now fully grown, his armor plates shining and strong. He made a happy sound when he saw Lisa and trotted over to her. "Hello, old friend," Lisa said, placing her hand on his armored head. Scout had been the first, the one who had shown that trust between humans and Ravagers was possible. "I have news," Perry said as they watched the riders. "The mining company on the moon has been ordered to stop operations and clean up their pollution. The evidence you gathered was too strong to ignore." Lisa nodded. "Good. The Ravagers have been much healthier since the pollution began to decrease." They walked to a laboratory where Kevin was working with a team of scientists from various coalition species. Even a blue-skinned Silurian worked among them, carefully examining samples. "The medicine we developed from Ravager biology has been approved for use throughout the coalition," Kevin reported happily. "It's already saving lives on 12 planets." Outside the main building, a new shuttle landed. Ambassador Zorn stepped out, followed by a group of Silurian scientists. Their faces showed excitement rather than the fear that had once been common when visiting Cerberus 9. "Captain Ward," Zorn called, hurrying over. "Our council has officially approved the joint research project. These scientists will be staying for 6 months to learn your methods." Lisa smiled. "They're welcome here. We have housing ready for them." A young Silurian looked nervously at Scout, who had followed Lisa outside. The large Ravager approached slowly, making a soft greeting sound. "It's okay," Lisa assured the Silurian. "Scout is saying hello. You can touch him if you'd like." With trembling blue fingers, the Silurian reached out. Scout remained still, allowing the touch. The Silurian's face changed from fear to wonder. "I never thought I would touch a Ravager and live," he whispered. Lisa nodded. Many thought the same, but understanding can replace fear if we're willing to try. Later that day, Lisa stood on a hill overlooking the research center. Star, her faithful Ravager companion, stood beside her. In the valley below, humans worked alongside members of 6 different alien species. Ravagers moved freely among them, no longer seen as monsters, but as partners. A ship passed overhead, heading for the landing area. It carried students from 20 coalition worlds, all coming to learn the human approach to working with dangerous species. "We were right to stay," Lisa said to Star, who made a soft sound of agreement. "Some thought we were crazy to try to understand your kind instead of fearing you." Admiral Perry joined her on the hill. "The phrase is spread throughout the coalition, you know. Only humans would be crazy enough to tame these beasts." Some say it with admiration, others with head-shaking disbelief. Lisa smiled. "We didn't tame them. We earned their trust. There's a big difference." In the field below, Scout led a group of juvenile Ravagers in training exercises. The young Ravagers were being prepared to work with human partners, continuing the bond that had begun with a crash landing and a brave decision to help rather than harm. "What's next for you, Captain?" Perry asked. "The Coalition has identified 3 other worlds with species considered too dangerous to approach. They're asking for human teams." Lisa looked at the sun setting over the plains of Cerberus 9. "I think I'll stay here a while longer. We still have much to learn from the Ravagers." Star made a rumbling sound and pressed her armored head against Lisa's side. "And they still have much to teach us," Lisa added softly.